hey, it's Will, I'm out here, there's a breeze, it feels great, I can feel the air blowing on the hairs of my arm, and it feels kind of nice. And I'm noticing this thing behind me with, that could have a light flashing on it. You see that light there? And it's got, it's interesting stuff, right? That stands out. It's like, oh, why is this here? It raises my curiosity, right? And I'm noticing these things, these sensations, these things in the world around me, I'm noticing them, right? So that's actually what I want to talk to you about today. It reminded me about perception, which is so important in acquiring accents and learning a new sound system. So basically what this means is, what are you able to hear? Yes, but what are you able to notice? What are you able to distinguish? Are you able to tell the difference between similar sounds or no? And this is so important, right? Because a huge thing that blocks people when they're trying to learn new sounds, when they're trying to sound more natural, more clear in a new language or accent, a huge thing that blocks people is hidden differences, where you think that two sounds sound the same, or you can't really hear the difference consistently, but there's actually a meaningful difference there that you need to be able to learn to distinguish, and you're not yet able to do it. So yeah, what's up with that, right? So let's talk about that a bit. First of all, let's take a step back, right? So to me, there's two P's. I think of it as letter P at the beginning of both words, right? Perception and production. These kind of two big areas when it comes to acquiring accents. Perception is kind of on the input side, right? So listening, hearing, and being able to then mentally sort out that information and distinguish certain sounds. Because we can hear tons of different sounds coming in through our ears, right? But then it's up to our mind after that to be able to sort and filter that information in a way that has value. And that's a huge part of what's going on, that what I'm going to talk to you today about. And then there's the other side, right? So that was perception, and then there's this other side, which I call production, right? And that's your ability to use not just your ears now, but on the output side, so the speaking side, the tools that you have at your disposal, which when it comes to speaking is, your muscles in your throat, your mouth, your tongue, your jaw, all these muscles, and diaphragm to bring air in and out. So all of these muscles that we can use to create and shape airflow and the sound of that airflow so that we can communicate with other people. That's the production side. We're going to talk more about that in the future. So on the perception side, sometimes we can't tell the difference, right? What's up with that? Is there something wrong with us? Are we ever going to be able to figure it out? I don't think that there's anything wrong with us, no. It's just where we start, right? So as long as you don't have a real disability or disorder where if you're deaf, for instance, and you can't hear, or you have impaired hearing, that could get in the way. Or if you have some sort of mental disorder, for lack of a better word, that affects your ability to process auditory information and then ultimately bring that back out into production of sound. As long as you don't have a real disability or disorder in any of those areas and that chain from input to output, then it's really just a matter of skill acquisition and strategy to train your mind to be able to notice new things and produce new things with more skill. So it's totally possible for you to figure it out, but you gotta approach it with the right strategy. So if you can't hear the difference between, for instance, the TH sound in the word the and the D sound that a lot of Brazilians make when they say the word the and say duh instead, then you want to train your mind to start noticing that difference. And a lot of that just comes from exposure, strategic exposure. So if you're listening to a ton of language, just listening to Game of Thrones is the example I always throw out. If you just listen to whatever TV show or song you like and you're not paying attention in a strategic way, your mind might not be able to separate the difference on its own. So what I like to talk about is organizing things for contrast. So what that basically means is, if you want to edit the audio and arrange it so that you can take one sound and then immediately play another sound, so you might have to take the audio and pull it apart and arrange it differently, then you can actually begin to expose new details that you weren't noticing before. And this is a huge thing that most people don't do because it takes a little bit more effort, right? And you can have people do this for you, right? And give you audio files that help show the difference, right? And they can even give you information. This is what a lot of teachers try to do, right? That tells you about the difference. But ultimately, you gotta allow your own brain, it's not about the concept and about someone telling you. At the end of the day, and that can help, right? But at the end of the day, it's about you actually hearing it and being able to, with your own ears, with your own brain, start to notice those differences. So it really comes down to whether you create that sound file or someone else does. You can do it with video too, but you want to arrange that sound file in an order that is strategic, that exposes those subtle distinctions, those tiny differences. Because when they're spread out randomly, in an hour-long show, your brain's not going to pick up on it as easily. But when you take them and you put them side by side and you can flip back and forth, you're going to give your brain the best chance to start grabbing onto that little difference and say, oh, I think maybe the difference is this little thing that I'm hearing. And it's going to be crazy, right? Because it's going to be new territory. You're going to be in a new adventure that you're not sure what is what anymore, right? So you got to be a little bit curious, right? And explore this area. You're not going to know for sure, like, is that the difference? Do I hear that? It often starts with kind of that question, right? You're not sure, but you take that little thing that you might be hearing, that little difference, that tentative difference, and you follow that with curiosity, and you keep comparing the audio back and forth. Is that what it is? Yeah, okay, I think that's it. And you try some other audio. You try other speakers, and you keep listening to that difference, and you're gonna be able to train your mind. Your brain's gonna figure it out for you, basically, is the point, right? Your brain is good at this. It's been doing it its whole life, but you've spent also your whole life in your native sound system. So your brain has paid attention to those differences and not the differences in the other differences that are possible. So, I mean, that's enough info for today, I'd say. Focus on the contrast is basically the key takeaway, right? So what did we learn? The key takeaway, I would say, is that your brain is actually pretty good at figuring out differences, but you've got to give it the right food, the right input. If you just give it a lot of random, unorganized input, sometimes your brain is going to keep using the same old patterns you've been using your whole life for how it perceives the information. But if you feed it organized information, organized for contrast, if you are strategically modifying the audio that you're listening to, or strategically looking for the sounds in a very specific way so that you can start to detect those little differences, your brain is going to naturally start to break its own patterns and find the new patterns, notice new tiny differences that you never even noticed before, that you weren't able to hear before. The information is all out there, your brain is just currently discarding it, not paying attention, because normally those differences don't have value in your native sound system. So organize the audio you're listening to, be curious, and see if you can maybe start noticing what might be a little difference that you've never noticed before, and follow that. Because if you keep looking at that little difference, you might start realizing, oh, that difference is bigger. Yeah, this is a real thing. And you're gonna get better at hearing that difference. You're gonna build skill in being able to distinguish that difference. So that's how I think about the perception side. Hopefully this gave you some value for today. We'll talk a little bit more about production in a future video. Let me know in the comments below, wherever you're watching, if any of this resonated with you, if it's helping you, if it gave you any ideas for how you might be able to practice, if maybe there's something you've been doing that you're gonna change or try something new. Let me know. I want this to be a conversation. I'm here to help you. If any of this was confusing, I'd love to know that too, so that I can improve my message for you and other people. Wherever you are, leave a comment below, and hope you have a great week. Thanks. This is Will from Simple American Accent, and talk to you soon.